first 6 months took to stop all activities because people never believed that this could go on for such a long time.
Correct.
And I think engaging with the players or the coaches, administrators, it took a long time to understand. But ultimately, they started engaging people online. I think the coaches association, along with All India Football Federation, did a fantastic job by engaging the coaches, and in turn, the coaches were engaging the players, and that started off very well. And I think most of the kids and the coaches have been benefiting from that. What is happening over the years was the number of jobs going off because of the pandemic. People didn't know how to get into different means of work. There was not large number of football activities around. Though the ISL and I League showed that a bio bubble was helpful without any casualty, they were successful in doing that. Vice versa with IPL, which had to be stopped because of the pandemic. So I think football wise, we have done pretty well, but you lose a lot of ideas, to get into engaging people. And when the pandemic starts growing off and going into the second phase, which was much dangerous because the casualties were very high, the deaths were high. We had to keep everybody motivated. There were a lot of programs on motivation, but I don't know, staying inside the house, how much a player feels, because it's very difficult for ourselves as elders to really, look at ourselves, to get motivated. There's no work, really, going outside, social distancing. There's no social being. You cannot meet people. You cannot go anywhere. You have the time, and you have to use it wisely. So activities like fitness, like getting into creative art or something became very important. I myself started cooking food inside the house, which was very much interesting to me because I was busy with the activity. So it was important to keep people busy with the activity. There were a lot of programs online, but I think it's getting difficult to really contain people in the house, and there's a lot of issues on mental health which has to be tackled, though it is new to sports, because I remember a decade ago, we were struggling to get a physiotherapist into the team because the mindset was not there. But now I think the mental aspect of it is coming out. Each and every individual in every family needs somebody or the other. There are a lot of programs happening, not only through the government, through the state governments, to the district, to the municipal corporations. But at the same time, I think administration in football also needs to put in a lot of importance on mental health. And that's where I think we will have to up our antenna because this is going to be a way of life, pandemic, till all the players are vaccinated and they have the confidence to come out. It's not going to happen very soon. And especially when they are talking about the third wave, it's going to be interesting to see how this falls in place, what protocols are going to be used for children. And though the government is really trying to upgrade their facilities to counter this third wave, I think we have to be more careful as to not hurry up to get back onto the field. Though we all say that sports is going to be the first one to come back into its existence, but I don't know whether it's going to be like before. It will take a couple of years or maybe a decade to really get into that system. But of seeing more people into the stadiums and huggings and all such things, it's going to be like a be careful tag for all of us. Right. And to point out to your question, when you were making the introduction about Olympics and how India were very much popular in the 50s and 60s, I think we should also understand that India always thought the Olympics were one of the biggest sport for the nation because funding is to come from the government. And when you talk about World Cup versus Olympic, I think if you have to go to the World Cup, you have to pay your own fare and go to the World Cup. But in the Olympics, the government take care of you. And in the 56 or 60s, I think very few countries played. Maybe 40 or 50 countries or 60 countries must have participated in the Olympics. And I think India were reigning to be on the top 4 or the top 8 always, because it was a country which took to football because of the hierarchy of the British governance. So it was interesting to know that that rub-off could not be maintained for long, because more and more teams came in and more participation. Today, FIFA has got more than 200 teams participating, and India is on 104 or around that. So I think that's commendable by India that we have reached a certain level, but the technology and the culture that is happening in other countries, I think India has not really fallen in place of culture, in place of culture. And I think grassroots and youth development have started only in the last 5 to 7 years, maybe a decade. And I'm sure that India looks forward to being a team to beat in Asia first.
Definitely, sir. So continuing this discussion, so when we talk of the association or the AIFF, the federation doing a lot of work on players. So during our last panel discussion, also we had a very interesting discussion around the need for association, the need for a federation, and with a lot of negative light being thrown around federation officials by the movies, by the this thing. So yes, we got a very pertinent this thing that yes, there are no good or bad officials, there are no good or bad federations. It's only that good officials have to come in. So how do we get good administrators onto associations or federations, and especially administrators who have played the game, because they would understand the game better than somebody who comes in pure play, politics, or only for the sake of administration. So how do we get good administrators onto the associations?
So basically, I would actually agree to disagree. And it's important to have political leaders or political administrators also in the systems whereon we take sportsmen to come on the administrating side also. So it is like that. Is that All India Football Federation was the first federation to comply with professionalism. They had a executive secretary who was not elected but selected. And I think that was the way, because FIFA put in their constitution, in their books, that there has to be a professional setup, and that's how it happened. But what happens in a country as large as us is that there is a Olympic Association, there is a federation, and the federation, you are a member of an Olympic Association as well as the federation, the confederation, and the world body like FIFA and AFC. And in their books, they clearly say that you have to have a professional secretariat which runs the entire organization. But at the IOA or at the IOC, when they percolate it downwards, I think that enforcement is not done, that you need to have a professional secretariat. So people in other sports try to take it for very much granted, and that's the reason why the honorary structure is really damaging, or I would say the honorary structure is not really up to the mark to really bring out the best in the sport, because they cannot understand. First of all, it is honorary, so the time is something that is a constraint, because they come in and put 1 or 2 hours in the business of the game. But football is a business by itself. You don't work it as a business, you will never survive. And that's why most of the states or most of the districts are facing trouble. I think very, very frankly to tell you is that there are few states in India which are following the professional secretariat route, and there are few or a little more states which have good administrators. They really are involved in the administration 24/7. So I think what's important over here is that if you want to have a fantastic or a great structure in the game of football, or in the association, or in the federation, what's important is you have a political person in the helm of the job, but his secretariat has to be professional without any interference. Because tomorrow, if I want to have a World Cup in Maharashtra or in Mumbai, you need a political touch, or you need a political push. And I don't think a sports person maybe he could be Mr. Ganguly or maybe Henry Menezes or Dinesh Nair. I think the push wouldn't be sufficing enough to really put up that spectacular that we want to achieve at World Cup level or Asia Cup level or something of that sort, because there are huge amounts of permissions and we need to push those permissions across. So I think it should be a mix of
Balance
people
of
in the
both. Yeah.
administration, and the responsibilities should be shared in such a way that there's no interference, but there is only collaboration and moreover, a helping hand to grow the sports without any condition.
Understandable. Great, sir. I think this is an insight that most people would not really think too much about, because at the end of the day, when we see associations and we see politicians involved, a lot of time it just is that just because somebody is a politician is getting involved. But then this is an insight that we wanted to bring out, to the audience, that it is not just the sports fraternity that would be there, but because if you see the game at a larger play, it is this thing is support is required from all the stakeholders and politicians, especially in as you said, in the clearances or in taking the bigger picture. If we got to get a tournament getting happening, so yes, the convincing or the push has to come from there, and they would be in a better position to push it with the administration, I mean the government machinery, more than a sports administrator would. On a very 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 point. Moving on to Dinesh Nair, sir. A very basic question. Did you play any other game early on? And if yes, then why did you switch on to football?
Yeah, thank you, Arvinder, for having me here. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, sir.
And it's always a pleasure to be in a panel discussion or just over a call or in a meeting with Henry. I mean, we are colleagues now as stakeholders, but I think when I was playing, he was already into management. He was already, running teams. So yeah, it's been a journey for me also, quite a lot of learning from him, especially the administration part of it. And because he's been there and done that, right? So it's always been a pleasure. Coming back to the question of which other sport I played, as a kid, I used to play all sport. I mean, but that was more of, gully, time pass. So we used to play box cricket. Whenever there's a World Cup cricket match happening, we used to play cricket. Then football happening, we used to play football. Then, I mean, you name it, we used to play every sport.
So flavor of the season kind.
Yes, flavor of the season. And I was a very late bloomer in terms of football. So I wasn't into athletics. I used to train regularly as an athlete in schools. So I've taken part in inter-school competitions in athletics. Football happened very late. In fact, my school, Indian Islands Ideal School in Kalina, was never a sport, a football school, like you name other schools like Don Bosco, all those schools. So I got into the team, but I never played a single game. I mean, I was always on the bench. I never played a single game in school, and our school won the 3rd division title, and I didn't play 1 minute of the entire tournament. But then I took up football later. Then I went to Khalsa's. Even in Khalsa's 11th and 12th, Guru Nanak Khalsa College, 11th and 12th, I didn't play for the college team. I got into the college team in F5, and I was a science student. I got into college because of science. It's not through sports. And then I land there, and the first day I still remember. It's still there in so our the director of physical education and our coach was Jaswant Singh Garewal. Sir, I mean, the first day I went, like a typical player with a bag and those torn jeans, shorts wala, as if you are there and you have done that. And then he said, "Get out," and I was like surprised, and then I went and spoke to the other coaches. I said, "What?" Because I was late. I mean, I didn't know the time of the training. We have never been there. Then I joined the team, and that's where I started, training hard. Then, I had a goal in place. I was a late bloomer, but my only thing was I wanted to play for the country. I don't know how. So I started training hard. Goalkeeping also happened to me. I mean, I used to play as a right full back, and I used to play even in the MDFA league where Khalsas used to play at St. Xavier's ground, Parel. I used to play at full back and goalkeeper. And then it happened and put in a lot of hours. And then that is where, just to take you to the journey, university, we were playing against Mahindra and Mahindra. So the university team and Mahindra junior team. I had a practice match, and that's where Derek D'Souza, former national team coach, and he saw me. I said, "Would you like to go to a club in Goa, Vasco, for trials?" I said, "Wow, Goa." So idea was Goa जाना है, team नहीं मिले ठीक है, गोवा घूम के आ जाते हैं. And then that's how I reach in Goa, and then it of course a lot of time, a lot of hard work, but then that flew. I played for the Goa state, represented Goa, played for Vasco. Then there was a new club which came up, that was FC Cochin, and they are the best players in the country, like Vijayan, I am Vijayan, Joe Polancheri, Carlton Chapman, Raman Vijayan. So they had trials for a goalkeeper, not the first goalkeeper, for the second and the third, I said. And then I went for the trials there and played, and then I got chance. I played in the first 11, represented Kerala in the Santosh Trophy. Then a call came from Mohan Bagan, so shifted to Mohan Bagan. Played for Bagan, played for Bengal, Santosh Trophy. We won the Santosh Trophy. Then lucky, enough. I didn't play the Olympics because India didn't play the Olympics when there. But I played, lucky enough to play the pre-Olympics. So the qualifying round for the pre-Olympics, I was in the squad. And yeah, that's the journey. Not a very long journey. Very lucky. God was very kind that, at the right time I got the right breaks and the right teams, and played for the top clubs. And also in the I National League, that was called the National League then, the I League now. I played 2 positions in a game. So the first half I used to play as right full back.
Okay.
The second half I used to change the jersey and play in the goal. Because we had a player, his name was Sunday Sia. He used to play 2 positions. He used to play goalkeeper and striker. So first half he used to play in the goal. So we used to not make any changes. So the substitutes were intact. It was in the team changes, and it worked. We played around 9 to 10 games. I scored in a game. So yeah, so that's my journey. I think very late bloomer. I was not technically very strong because of course I started off very late. But yeah, picked up over the years. Yeah, so
amazing, sir.
That's if you ask me, yes, been lucky, and yeah, put in a lot of man hours, but yeah, been very lucky also. God has been very kind.
Great, sir. So amazing part of your journey that we heard. I will now switch from you being a player, to the next stage. So you founded the Association for Indian Football Coaches. Where did you see the need for such a thing? Like, why the Association for Coaches?
So yeah, there's been a journey before that also. From the time I stopped playing till the time I got back into football and coaching, or Association of Indian Football Coaches. So I quit playing in around 2000, 2001 when I was in my peak. I lost my father, and of course then education, being a, of course my family was very supportive of me playing, but yeah, I had to come back. And then I started my own company. I started working. But somewhere in my heart, I always had this, I want to get back to sport. I want to get back to football. That's what I love doing. 2013, so I had gone for a funeral. And that is where, someone asked me. So there was this Lions Club. So my friends, my mom's very good friend had expired, and I had never met her eldest son, who was, a past district governor for the Lions. So then he started speaking to me post, all the riots. Then he asked me, "You're into events, right? Why don't you do something at a parcel of land at Milan Subway?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, I'll go and have a look the next day." So then I land up there, and I don't know what happened to me. I said, "I want to get back to sport and football." And that's when we were expecting a second child. But I took that decision that, no, I want to get back to sport. I want to give back to sport. And that's how then we developed that parcel of land, which is at Milan Subway, Santa Cruz. It's called the Lions Municipal Sports Complex, which is, every penny that comes out of here is used for community work. And then that's when I started doing, I wanted to do my license. So I went to, of course, you go to Cooperage, you go to the WFA. I met Henry, and, he said, "Arey," his question was, "Itne saal kidhar tha?" So then, then he guided me in terms of, this is the pathway. So I did my D grassroots, and I did my D license, B license. So I was doing my licenses, and I was doing also my goalkeeping licenses. And then when I went for my A licenses, where I started like, okay, licenses is something that the All India Football Federation does. We have all the licenses starting from grassroots, D, B, C, B, A, pro license, and then if you have goalkeeping level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you have your conditioning course. Now you have futsal, you have beach soccer, and all of that. But the entire thought behind is this is about the physical, the technical, tactical, physical, mental aspects of the game. But there is something much more than that. We also need to understand that I always say this. People must have, heard me saying 1,000 times, but every child who plays doesn't end up becoming a Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Sunil Chhetri, Ronaldo, or a Messi, right? So this is much bigger than that. Even in the Premier League, where every club has an academy, professionally run academy, it's less than 1% of the children end up playing elite football or elite sport. So this was much more than that. And when India can produce the best doctors in the world, the best CEOs, the best scientists, the best IT professionals, why not best players? So when we think about it, there's an educational setup in our country, right? You go to your pre-primary, primary, secondary, you go to college, you go to professional degree college, you do medical and all of that. But there was this, gap wherein we could help the coaches who already have licenses and the coaches who don't have licenses, help them, educate them about what they can do. Where AIFF was, I think it's the only federation in the country which is doing, a systematic approach in coaching licenses. I don't think any other associations has so many licensed coaches and the entire structure that is followed from Asian Football Confederation and then FIFA. So that's where it is. It's about a coach knowing not only on the pitch, the technical, tactical, physical, mental, but how to speak to management, how to speak in a press conference, how to speak to a child who's in grassroots, how to speak to a child who's or a player who's an elite player. There are a lot of aspects in a sport that is other than playing the sport itself. So I think that's where AIFC was formed to help coaches, upgrade by doing CPDs, continuous professional development, courses, webinars, and that's how AIFC was formed. And to form that, we needed the right people with the right mentality who wanted to come, because it's a not-for-profit. So we have Derek Pereira, who's with FC Goa right now, great coach. We have Thangboy Singto, we've got Sanjay Sen and the legendary I.M. Vijayan. So we came together and said, let's do something. So we organized the first ever international football conference, where we had more than 350 coaches from more than 24, 26 states who came to Mumbai for the conference. We had speakers from FIFA, we had speakers from Liverpool, from the Japan Football Association, from AFC, who came and spoke and educated our coaches. And then at the end, we had a coaches awards, where we awarded the best grassroots coach to the best women's coach. And then we did a lot of programs, workshops, clinics, seminars. But then the pandemic struck us. So in the pandemic, Henry already mentioned, what we did is initially, we started interacting with our coaches, and then we understood that the coaches are, Henry rightly mentioned, they were getting mentally affected, not going to the ground, not training. So we wanted to get them together. So what we did is we created 16 classrooms, virtual classrooms across the country, where each classroom we had an educator, a couple of educators, and we came out with a module. And we got coaches together to register. 5,000 coaches registered.
Wow.
In different programs that we did. We did more than 200 webinars. So, we had national team coaches, ISL coaches, speaking to our grassroots coaches. So they were literally rubbing shoulders with them, of course, online, but asking them questions, interacting. So that went up well. Then we got in Raymond Domenech, who was the France FIFA World Cup coach. So, Zidane and all top players. So Raymond Domenech came and spoke to the pro and A-license coaches. Then we had different, we did on women's football. We did on media. It was so important for coaches to understand how to interact in front of, pre-match, post-match, what to post on media. We spoke about first aid, nutrition, all of those, sports psychology. So all of that. And that's the whole idea. I mean, it's to work along with the All India Football Federation, because India is a continent. It's not a country in its own. So work along with all the stakeholders and try work for the welfare and for the betterment of coaches, which in turn will help the children.
Wow.
Right. And it's about educating children that if you're not a player, it's okay. You can become a coach, you can become an analyst, you can get into broadcasting, you can get into media, you can get into marketing, you can get into operations. So that's the whole, I think that's more important of looking at an holistic
Holistic.
of a child.
Yeah, correct. So amazing. So I would ask Henry sir. So Dinesh sir made the point of the licensing program that the AIFF, and you have been at the helm. So you started these programs. So why did you start? What was the thought? What was the need behind having a licensing program for the coaches?
Well, I'm so happy when Dinesh spoke about all the features of coaching, and there are 5,000 coaches who came to register and all. It's a fantastic effort that happened a decade back. It's almost about 2011 that I visited about 21 districts in Maharashtra just to find out why football is not growing. And when you analyze the entire thing, we understand the problem was that Maharashtra never had any coaches. And that's the beauty of it. Nobody had analyzed before कि क्या problem है, क्या नहीं है. There are football players, there are football grounds outside Mumbai, and why it's not happening. You have a PT teacher who's overall, gifted with the knowledge of all sports, but unfortunately, they are not specialized in any given sport, and that was the interesting part. I think I got a lot of flake from every district in the newspaper stating that when I used to go there, I said they should always try to convince me that we have football grounds, we have enough large land, parcels of land, we have enough number of children, we have footballs. So I said, where are the coaches? And they were dumbstruck. And I said, nothing is going to happen if you don't have any coaches. You have a school, you have a player, you have children, and you have a fantastic infrastructure with benches and books and all. But where are the teachers? And that's exactly what hit the entire thing. And I was very happy that I could be in one of the meetings that happened at the Awardees, where that time ISL was getting conceptualized. Mr. Mukesh Ambani was there. Mr. Praful Patel, as the president of AIFF, was there. The entire executive committee members were there, and the IMG group also UK was present over there. And that's the time I said we are going in for such a big event of ISL conceptualizing. Mr. Mukesh Ambani always said that दबंग या में एक आइटम सॉन्ग है, हमको 6 आइटम सॉन्ग डालना है इंडियन फुटबॉल के अंदर. And that's the way that he made people understand very simply. And I said that we don't have enough coaches. And when we calculated, we had some 35 to 40 coaches in Maharashtra for a population of 120 million. I think that was cruel, actually. And out of 35, Mahindra had about 8 coaches, and Air India had about 4 coaches, and Railways had about 6-8 coaches, and that's finished. The rest of Maharashtra was empty. So the point was that can we do an indigenous coaching license? And I remember our junior team coach. What is his name, Dinesh? Under 16 में पहला था बॉम्बे का.
Akhil.
No. Don Ball, अपना केंकरे. So.
Floyd.
I remember Floyd because I was a chief guest at the MSSA event, and he had come from abroad, and he is saying that India needs an indigenous program. And I don't know how, because AFC were delivering all the programs. So I said, why not ask this question? So I asked Mr. Praful Patel that can we have an indigenous program? It'll be interesting, and I'm interested in doing that. And he said, okay. And Kushal Das, our secretary, also was very much happy. And Mr. Mukesh Ambani said, it will be fantastic if we can have more coaches. And I think that is the time where I got the former coach director. I think his name was Gabriel Joseph. He was in the making of helping us the curriculum. What I did was all the B license holders, whether it was Santosh Kashyap, Khalid Jamil, Yusuf Ansari, Arshad Hussain, Akhil Ansari, all these in Maharashtra, we had so many of them who had done D license. We got all these guests together, and I said, let's have somebody from Kerala, let's have somebody from Assam or somebody in the Northeast. And we had 3 or 4 people from outside, 2 of them from Kerala, one from the Northeast, and one is from Goa, Memol. She was the only girl instructor. So we had an instructor's course done for them, and we used all the HR techniques, whether it is for how to present, how to look into the eye. There would be senior players in the team. How do you tackle them? All these HR compliances were tried to put into the curriculum for teaching the instructors. And the best part was that I was hit back by all my friends. These were all friends because they were coaching. And I said, 10,000 रुपए देना पड़ेगा instructor बनने के लिए. And they said, क्या Henry sir, तुम ऐसा करता है वैसा करता है. I said, nothing doing. I'll give you back the 10,000 bucks. And that was a success because everybody put in the money. We had the Bombay Gymkhana, and Bombay Gymkhana also supported us very well for the instructor. We got 16 instructors there, and you won't believe that what we did in the initial stage was we wrote to every district in Maharashtra stating that every school, every college, and every club must have a licensed coach.
Okay.
And what happened, Arvind, was once we did that, we opened up our portal and we got 500 forms.
Wow.
In the first week, and we didn't know how to tackle them. So we had, because the instructors were from Mumbai, we decided we will charge the coaches to do their programs, because we had a very good experience before that, because AFC used to actually give us the courses. And if you look at AFC, gives 5 courses to India, 5 to Bhutan, 5 to Nepal, 5 to Bangladesh, and for India 5 is nothing.
Nothing.
And from Nepal it must have been a big thing, because 100 coaches come up and 5 or 6 of them, five courses. So the interesting part was here that we had a lot of instructors, so we made different fields, one in Borivali, one in Thana, one in the back gardens, one in Cooperage, one at Xavier's. So in the first month we finished around 200 coaches, which was a very big number to finish. And everybody started wondering, what is this happening? The idea was to standardize coaching everywhere in the schools, because we saw in the schools, people were not behaving well with the kids, because competition became the foremost part for the coach. Whether at the grassroots and youth level, we said that competition should be the last, though competition is important, but the emphasis has to be given on physical technique and things like that. So we went on to do this, and I think in the span of 5 years, we got around 2,500, and today we say that we may be having around 3,500 to 4,500 coaches at the D license, maybe more than 2,500 coaches on the grassroots level. And I'm sure that Dinesh will vouch that Maharashtra created about 65 to 70% of the entire coaching in the country.
Wow.
And that has benefited at the grassroots level and the youth level. I think schools also. And the best part is the association would never, ever be able to train more than 100 kids in a year. But with this process, where now we have 5,000 coaches, I think each coach would train about 25 to 50 players, maybe 100 players. And if you look at that, we are touching about 500,000 kids in this entire program, and that to standardize coaching around the place. And what is important to understand over here, it has been given an alternate employment for them.
Yes.
Today what is happening is that the kids who feel that they cannot get into football to reach a certain level, they shift themselves into either coaching or management or analysts or other verticals, because earlier we thought football is only about players. Very certainly, I think it's our last decade. We have spread our wings to say that there are various verticals that you can take up in football, and I think now the youngsters have understood that even if you can't play, you could be a part of it. And I think coaching was the first thing to show. So interestingly, that was what made the difference in Maharashtra. And today, after what we talk about 10 years, Maharashtra has been ranked number 2 in the country after Bengal. And a certain amount of pride is there that you left a legacy there. Jobs have been offered to each and every coach, because every school wants Once a coach was a licensed coach. And I think they earn 25 to 50,000 rupees, and that's fantastic for 5,000 coaches. Not all 5,000 coaches would be active. You minus 20-25%, but 75% people benefit from him. So I think Dinesh Nair already spelled that he was the first guy to do the D license. I think many of them are there, and today where he is, I'm very proud to say that he has done that through the system, and he's been one of the most capable coaches right now in Indian football for goalkeepers, as well as an instructor on the board of All India Football Federation.
Wow. So it's been some time, as you said, some time has gone. So where do you see a before and after kind of a scenario? So you have put in some points, but if I would say that maybe 2-3 points where we say a before and after of the licensing program.
Yeah, see, I will tell you now. Before we had how many teams did we have in Maharashtra? Whether we talk about club football today, if you look at Kolhapur, you look at Nagpur, you look at Solapur, which never had football earlier. Now they have grown up to have 160 players divided by, they have 16 to 18 teams. You have got Thane, you've got Navi Mumbai, you've got Palghar. So if I tell you, we have maybe 35 districts in Maharashtra. Earlier, we used to get participants from 24 to 28 districts. But today we proudly say that all 35 districts are participating in the national level and district level tournaments. And we never heard about Buldana. I think the girls' football is so big in Buldana, whether it is Nagpur, whether it is, you talk about Pune, which has grown tremendously. Navi Mumbai, Thane, we talk about, they've got one of the best teams, Mumbai. So the competition in the entire region has excelled below the performance of teams. Earlier, we should think that Mumbai would clean sweep. But today, we look at last year's IWL winners were Kolhapur. And we had a very close call between Mumbai and Kolhapur. So it is fantastic to understand that women's football also has taken a fantastic leap in the entire scenario, because if you look at the population of India, 120 million people, we talk about the age group of 6 to 17 years. We are saying that we have got 21.5 million kids between this age group, and out of which 11.5 million are boys and 10 million are girls. So if you look at the same equation to India, we're talking about 115 million boys and 100 million girls. And we are totally in a focus that it's a men's world. And what happens if you bring out the women's into the football arena? We have a huge mass, we have a huge attention, and I think girls have spearheaded very beautifully. And for that, I would credit to FIFA. But the important part is that even in Maharashtra, we are talking about women's football. We say in Maharashtra, till 10 years back, we would have 8 to 9 teams participating, or 10 teams. Now there are 28 teams participating. So the impact of coaching has gone so viral in the entire country that it does not make any difference whether it's a boy or a girl who's been trained. The protocols and the curriculums are very clear about how to go about in the grassroots level, where boys and girls play together up to a certain age group, and then they have divided them into individual groups. So coaching is the foremost, I think, development that any district or state could do, so that if you have more number of teachers, you have more number of kids. The only part is that we need to add on the competitions where they can go on playing at least 50 to 60 matches in a year, whereas in India, we don't get that kind of competitions. If you look at MSSA or you look at the school games, you are talking about 4 to 8 matches. And if you talk about the entire, you play the local school games, then you play the suburbans, and then you play the state, and then you go to the school federation games, you might get 8 matches or 9 or 10 matches. And that's the difference. I think Dinesh will agree to me that if you look at Europe will deliver you 70 to 75 matches for every kid, because they play in and out every week. But in India, we don't get that many matches. That's why the difference. That's why we need to bring in a lot of emphasis on coaching and competition, so that we really bring out a lot more performance or the acceleration in the technique and the experience of players to play matches.
Great. So amazing insight. I'll come to the bit of the women's football in some time. But Dinesh Nair sir, so continuing, so Henry sir had put down that grassroots levels is what is getting impacted now, and he spoke of the MSSA, the school level, this thing. So you have been working with different stakeholders and are responsible for development of the sport at the grassroots level. What has been your experience in identifying talent at that level, at the grassroots level? What has been your experience there, sir?
Yeah, coming to grassroots, I mean, it's so important, and I mean, it's like if you get the best coach in the world and give her senior national team, we are not going to qualify the World Cup or win the World Cup unless unless you start working with children from from really the small age. That's the grassroots. Like Arsene Wenger rightly said, if by the age of 14, if a player is not technically strong, he shouldn't take up elite sport. And that's important is working at the grassroots. And also important is identifying. See, now identifying a player for professional team is like all analytics, right? You know that, okay, which foot does he play to? Is he left foot or right foot? Which position does he play? What are his strengths? What are his weakness? Is he good with the ball? Is he good at tackling? Is he good in defending? Is he, what's his work rate? What is shooting? What is his dribbling 1-to-1? But when you have to assess a child who's 7-year-old, that will this child after 15 years or 10 years become a player, it's a challenge. So understanding that, who are you looking at? What are you looking at in the child is very important, and spotting the right challenge, because then you're investing 10 years into the child, minimum.
Correct.
Right? And that includes not only training. It's not that you get the best facilities and you train a child. And Lee rightly mentioned, it's the number of matches that they play. Like we had the Under-17 World Cup in India. I was lucky to host the England team which won the World Cup at the Mumbai Football Arena. So I was speaking to Steve Cooper, who was their coach, the winning coach. And, this was before the World Cup. And I was asking, so these children who came there, or these players who came there, they had 500 to 600 matches under their belt by the age of 16. And that's a huge number. And our boys had 100 matches. There's no comparison. Someone who's played 600 matches, 700 matches, competitive matches, and someone who's played 100 matches, it's, your mentality, your decision making, your match temperament, everything is so different. Plus, what happens in a game situation is also, and in grassroots also, where you need to scout. I mean, all coming back to your question, to scout is not call them for a trials and logo khilaya team dalke. They should be these baby leagues, which AIFF has started, there. You have to watch the child in their environment. If you pull a child out and put them into a trials, they might be under pressure. Like, mera aaj trials hai, kya hoga? They should be playing the game. The scout should be they shouldn't even know the scouts are there. And then that's how you scout. Of course, every academy, every club will have their own criteria, right? What they're looking at, what type of player, depending on their philosophy, depending upon a lot of factors. So that's important, is identifying the right child. But you will be surprised that you might identify a player as a goalkeeper. After a few years, he might not be a goalkeeper. He might be playing in some other position. Or some player you might have think, "Ye mera goalkeeper hai." After a couple of years, this player might be a best fullback or a midfielder or a striker. So it is about the growth of a child. I think that is more important. I mean, how many hours a day will you train football? 1.5 hours, which has to be done. There's no doubt about it. That's the primary goal. But also important is the overall, how you develop a child, how you are making them responsible citizens or, role models of the future. I think that's important. And I think, about women's football, fastest growing sport in the world. I mean, but we need to get down there and get girls to love the game, enjoy the game, have the right coaches, create the right environment, create the right platforms. And that can be just playing 1v1, 2v2s. You don't have to be 11v11. 1v1, 2v2s, 3v3s, 5v5s. Let them play. And you won't believe it. Like, there was a good experience with Mumbai City FC. We did the AIFF Baby League. So, every child has to play 18 to 20 games. The first game, when the children came to play under 6, some kids scored own goal. They didn't know which side they were going, and they didn't know which was the outline, which was the sideline. 1 game, 2 game, 3 game, it was 2v2 and 3v3. Third game, they knew exactly what has to be done.
Right.
You don't have to teach them. You need to just let them play. And The coaches don't have to be a commentator standing out and giving commentary. The child has to make decisions. So creating that environment where the child makes the decision, and you develop, then you just show them the path, and you will be surprised that children will do things that you don't expect.
Correct.
Because in today's world, they're watching so much top class football. They watch, so they start doing things that, like in coaching, I'll tell you. So the coaching process is, if there's a training happening, you go and stop, right? The session. You ask the player. So when the coach stops the session, the coach has two options already, maybe 2, 3, depends upon, if this player could have done A, B, he could have done this, C could have done this. Sometimes the player comes up with an option that you have not thought about. Player said, "Coach, I could have done this." So that's what matches and grassroots and identifying, right? How will you identify? You need to create these platforms. You need to create baby leagues. And that's not only about creating players; they become fans for life, and that's what makes football culture. You have parents coming in. Imagine what happens. So if under 6 or under 8 is playing, children won't travel alone. So parents come along. So you are increasing your stakeholder base. And you never know which parent working where, running a business, so that's what we need to improve. As Henley rightly mentioned, there needs to be money into the entire system. There needs to be quality into the entire system, whether be it coaching, whether be it organizing tournaments, leagues, everything has to fall in place. So I think grassroots football or grassroots sport is very important, and schools.
So that's where I was coming to. Okay, if you're talking 6-year-olds and if you're talking of this thing, so in the Indian context, of course, schools and school students are taken as the grassroots. So any specific tips for any school coaches or academicians who are there with us today, or who would watch our YouTube videos? So any specific tips for them for the sport? Because see, typically academicians are not people who are generally too aware about sports, or and sadly when we work with schools, we figure out that if a portion of a particular subject is not completed, so the PE period or the sport period is the first one to be gobbled up. Arey PT hai, arey sports hai, chalta hai, take that and complete your portion, because at the end of the day, the school believes this, the academicians sadly believe this, that academics is the core responsibility of the school, and unfortunately because of that the sports get stepmotherly treatment, if I can say that. So any specific tip to academicians, to school sports coaches, on developing this system at their places?
I mean, a couple of, I wouldn't call it tips. It's just my thoughts or our thoughts. I can say Henry will agree with that. Our thoughts is don't restrict the child to one sport at that early age. Let him play multiple sport. It will help in the sport you really want him or her to develop. Right? That's important. Give them a lot of exposure, and don't. Yes, winning is important. Winning mentality is important, but don't focus on winning. Focus should be on development, because sport is such a neutralizer, right? You're rich, you're poor, you're black, you're white, you're fat, you're thin. Everyone on the pitch is the same. And this sport teaches you, apart from, they'll say discipline, XYZ, it teaches you how to accept defeat and a loss. And that's so important in today's world. Children have everything on this, right? Everything on their mobile phones. So they are so used to instant gratification. They're so used to winning always, But sport teaches you that. When I say sport, even playing in the building or in your gully, you lose sometimes, you win sometimes. So if you watch a movie, your movie star, 99% wins, right? Your hero comes out as a winner. But on a pitch, you will see the top player in the world losing and accepting defeat and coming back stronger. How reflecting yourself. I think sports teaches you that, and that's important. And that's what we should understand, and not emphasizing too much on that victory, and not. Yes, you need to coach, and on match days, especially on match days, this is something that I've seen over the years is, I know coaches get excited. It's wrong, but they started giving commentary, and you need to relax. Your work needs to be in training sessions.
Correct.
Matches is something you need to assess your players. Are they doing what you taught them? If not, it's not the children to blame, it's you to blame. So get back to the drawing board. After the game, go back to training sessions and work on it. And not only work on what their shortcomings or negative or faults are, also work on their positives, right? Because they have their positives. you work on them and make it even stronger. Also working on them. I think that's important for us to understand, and I think that is the key. And we all, like administrators, principals, or trustees or owners of school, it's important. Like a coach. Coach is like a maths teacher. Coach is like a science teacher or an English teacher. He is a teacher first. Yeah. So I think, and what a coach can teach you now. For an example, if Harvinder, you, Henry, Shailendra, all of you are players, and I'm the coach. Okay, and maybe Henry is good in studies, and Harvinder, you are not. And as a coach, I tell you, kal se khelne mata. Only come to play if you complete your homework. You will complete your homework because you want to play. So you can use sport as a tool to help kids with so many things.
So many things.
Put your basic, like put your clothes in the washroom. Make your bed before coming. So many values that you can teach the kid through sport, because a child loves playing. He'll do anything to come to play. So use it as a tool, and for the greater good. Player to banenge 100%.
Excellent tips. So Henry sir, I so coming back to what you were talking on, and a little briefly maybe. So what's happening on the front of football development for so women? So so when we talk of girls, women, if we could just put that briefly, sir.
I think let me add to what Dinesh was talking about when you were talking about these administrators in schools. What tips do you give them? I think it's very important to understand that sports has always been a media for attracting the best, actually. So if I say a school has achieved fantastic in the sports, I think they are advertised everywhere in the newspaper, social medias, and things like that. And they should understand that this also could be a medium to show that your school is so versatile in academics as well as in sports. You talk about Don Bosco's, or you talk about Mount Carmel, or you talk about schools like that, and many of them who are interested in sports or saying want to get into schools like that. So I think sports should also be a media to show that we are in the spirit of sports. We encourage kids, and we also take care of their education. So I think sports should be given that stature, because like Dinesh said that if you are good in studies, and if you're not good in studies, do your homework, otherwise you don't get to play. That's one part of it. But I think you have to project yourself as a fit school, as a school that is fit not only for football, but not only for sports, but also for education and other extracurricular activities. Okay, coming back to your point in women's, I already described the potential over there, because we're talking about 100 million girls in India in the range between 6 to 17, and I think that's a lot of people. When we talk about equity, you look at other games, especially tennis. Their equity has become such that now the men's and the women's winners are getting the same prize. Otherwise, there was a disparation or discrepancy in the amounts that they were receiving at the winning end. So equity of women has been the focus right now, and today FIFA also sends a strong signal that women's football should be encouraged, and that's the reason why it's this entire game, not only in football but the sport for women, has been growing in a manner that we would never imagine. Today, girls are getting educated. They want to be in par with boys. They want to have the same facilities. They want to do the same thing that boys are doing, and I think they are capable enough. And that's the reason why India, I think, if you look at All India Football Federation, their efforts to really to build up icons or iconize big events. They have brought in 2 big events in 2022. The AFC Asian Women's Championship that will happen in Mumbai also, in Navi Mumbai. And also the World Cup that is coming up later in October. The dates were just announced a couple of days back by FIFA that October 11 to 30th is going to be the Women's Football Under 17 here in India. Wow. So I think these two are going to empower a lot of kids, because a lot of activities will start off. A lot of legacy programs will come into place. Legacy programs mean there would be teams playing in every district. There would be grassroots. There would be baby leagues. There would be football corners where anybody can come and play your game for women's over there. And I think if you can encourage women's, the proportion of of participation or stakeholder doubles immediately, because you're talking about neglecting 100 million people in India between the age group of 6 to 17 who could fall in love with football and grow the sport accordingly. More sponsors coming in, more infrastructure building up, more participation, and more health. It's fantastic, and I think India has done very well. IWL, the Indian Women's League, which has really got in a lot of applauds. Because now, from the general part of just participating in tournaments, see, the point is that allow as much teams to participate, and then you put up your regulations of licensing, club licensing, so that you make them more professionals. So India is in the next stage where they're now starting club licensing for professional football for women, and that's going to be interesting because more and more girls are participating, whether it is Manipur or Karnataka, Jharkhand, Mumbai, or whether it is Kerala. Everywhere you see a spurt of women's football in the show. And Gokulam Kerala, they were the I-League winners, and they have got the best women's team as of now. And I think Mumbai, or maybe we talk Maharashtra, you talk about Delhi, have been putting in their best foot. Goa, they've been putting a best foot forward in women's football. Kerala. So it's interesting to see that. I think there's no looking back. I think we are going to increase the number of stakeholders in the game of football by inclusive football for women. And I think the federation has taken fantastic efforts to bring these two huge tournaments, because looking at the nearest, see, every kid would like to have a nearest icon which I can touch. It's not like if you ask a kid, they will say, I want to be like Ronaldo, or I want to be like Messi. How many of them have said that I want to become like Dheeraj Singh, or I want to become like Sandesh Jindal? So now, because of the iconic events coming into it, people will start relating themselves to the closest icon where they can reach out to. So today, if I want to be Dheeraj Singh as a goalkeeper, I would look at Dheeraj Singh and I would say Dheeraj Singh became a national team goalkeeper at the age of 17, and I am 15 years old. I can also become a national team goalkeeper. So that motivation level goes higher, and you immediately resonate to be a goalkeeper like him at that age. So that makes it more powerful to push kids to get into the business of football. So I think, women's football in conservative India is big empowerment. And I think that is going to go.
I think we do good there, and that's the best hope that we have. And with the events coming in, I'm sure they would go a long way in helping develop that part of the sport.
Sure.
I would shift from football a little, and is there a thought or a possibility that football can adopt other sports? So say, for example, handball, a sport which is again an Olympic sport, a sport which is fast paced and does not require too much of ground space. And we see a lot of work happening with handball at the grassroots levels. In fact, two of my sisters' cousins, they were state level players for handball also. But after that, there was nothing for them because, grassroots level se karke, there are school teams that were there, and then suddenly there is a lacuna, there is nothing. So do you see football? So as we say that cricket, being the richest, sport in India, tries to reach out to, other sports for the development of other sports. Do you see football helping other sports like this?
Well, I don't know whether we are capable enough to do that, but definitely we can have a look at it, because I remember a decade back when the All India Football Federation was in financial shortage. I think BCCI was the team that was a federation that really helped All India Football Federation with 25 crores, and that's what I heard. And I think it's possible if you think it that way. And I think most of the top looking teams or federations who are doing well in the sporting encounter should help the lesser known sport. But handball, I would say that it's almost like a team game, and it's like football. And I think you have to bring in a structure which can. I think it's not only that you help them through financial more, but I think technically we could replicate things with them by creating more coaches to bring in a grassroots structure, to bring in things like competitions. Maybe we're talking about 5v5. You can make it smaller for small kids because they cannot really put up the pace on the entire 30-40 meters that at the handball ground is that. I think we can work out on a curriculum. We can work out on coach education. We can work out on how to build competitions on that. I think it's possible if we really put our minds in. And I think you have put in a seed right now. I think we can always think about discussing this in the near future.
Great, sir. So, Dinesh Nair, sir, continuing on this. So we say, sir said that, the AIFF, the BCCI, put in some funds when the AIFF was in need. How important is sponsorship? How important is money for the sport? So not just for the players, but for the sport at large. How important do you think it is?
I think it's very important. It's very important for any sport, any business or any vertical to succeed. Money has to be there, right? I mean, it's not only you need money for infrastructure, you need money to give coaches, you need money for equipment, you need money to organize leagues, you need money to send players abroad or for tournaments. So yeah, the monies need to be in place, but also important is the monies used rightly. The monies has to be in the right hands. That's also important. People who know to manage, people also, it's not only to know to spend money, but people who also know to generate money.
Correct.
So that's, I think if that's the key and rightly used, of course, if you have X with you and, we should know what percentage goes where, how much goes for infrastructure, how much goes for development, how much goes for, tours, how much goes for tournaments, how much goes for, so that's important. And as Henry rightly mentioned, by all the coaching licenses, so many coaches have started academies, and that's money, right? There is money into the system. So children are paying the coaches are paying the turfs, coaches are paying the equipment. So it's all interrelated. It's not that it's only in one pocket. It has if children go to an academy, they pay the academy. The academy needs to pay to the turf. The turf, of course, needs to maintain. Then the academy needs to buy jerseys, equipments. Then they participate in tournaments. Then the tournament organizer. So it's a process. So yes, I think if someone says that it's only, yes, you need to be passionate. Yes, you need to be passionate, but there has to be money into the system, right? You need to, your basic necessities in life needs to be covered. That's for everyone. And unless you take it to a certain level, it doesn't work. And I feel that's what the ISL has done. It's taken it to the next level where, is named professionalism or getting, the right people. And that's why now, if there is no money into the system, I don't think you will send your child to become a sportsman. Or any parent will let their child get into the sports industry if there is no money and there is no future. I mean, a couple of years back, engineering, medical, yahi tha. Because they saw future in that. Mera bachche ka future acha rahega, job milega, jiyega. Similarly, if a parent knows that the system has the potential to take care of my child, financially making him secure, parents will send their child. So it is a cycle. I mean, and that needs to grow. I mean, stakeholders needs to come in. The current structure, has to be professional. It has to be a win-win for everyone. Great. Like as a parent, if when you talk of money, if a parent, I need to give whatever amount of money, I should see value into that product.
Correct.
If I see value into that product, and that's how the whole system works. So whether be it district associations, state associations, national body, clubs, local community clubs, academies, I think there has to be the entire schools, colleges, there has to be, entire churn of money coming in. And also, it has to be revenue generation also. Like if someone is organizing a tournament, there is no harm that, or organizing some course, there's no harm in that person or that body earning. Like they're putting a lot of time and energy behind that, right? And that's how you will create job opportunities, and that's how you will, get more people coming in. It needs to be a culture. People need to jump in to think that, no, my child will, but that's changing now. So I get calls from parents from across India that, my child wants to do sports management. My child wants to get into sports because they're seeing the benefits.
Correct.
Money is important. Yes.
Great. So great, amazing insights from two different perspectives. People who have, both the panelists who have played the sport and today are able frontline administrators, taking the sport to a different level. So I would like to bring in maybe if any questions that are there from the audience. We quickly have time maybe for one or two, because with this discussion we have overshot a little on what we had budgeted. So I think there is one this thing. Why don't we ever reach the Olympics? So that's a question put up by one of the participants. So if anybody could take that briefly, maybe in a minute or so. So Henry sir, if you could go in and take that question briefly. Why don't we ever reach the Olympics now?
So the point is, like I said earlier also, that the time we used to reach Olympics, there were 50 or 60 teams only participating. The competition have increased. The number of participation into the game has increased tremendously. Like almost all the countries are participating nowadays in Olympics, and they have grown far more than us. I think our emphasis on grassroots youth development was not too much till the last decade, and I think it will take a couple of decades more to say that we would be a team to be reckoned with, either in the World Cup or in the Olympics. Yeah, there's only one shortcut to all this, is that host the Olympics, host the World Cup, and you're automatically into the game. But it's a sad affair. But I think a lot of effort is required, a lot of money is required, a lot of infrastructure is required, and a lot of stakeholder cooperation or collaboration is required if we want to hit that Olympic berth. And it's I think we are on the way, with the population really becoming younger. Like we say, 50% of the population is below 25. I think now is the time where parents also look forward that their kids must enter into activities like physical activities. And from those physical activity kids, I think whether it is Dinesh or Henry Menezes or I am Vijayan or Baichung Bhutia, we were all kind of naturally gifted players who came into the system. But we need the system to drive getting in the players, and that's where we all have to put our heads together to make that system so efficient that from the time the kid is born and shows interest in a particular game, we should pick him up from there onwards, monitor him, and then create a group that can really take it forward with sports science and things like that, latest techniques from coaches. So yeah, we are on the path of doing things rapidly, but I don't think in the near future we talk about qualifying. Now, if you look at India, has moved on to Qatar with a lot of difficulties that they play on third. There are 3 games that they play, and if they get into either way, we are going to be qualifying to the qualifiers. So September will be the time we understand that we are going to qualify or no, or we'll have to get into the Asian qualifiers to qualify for the World Cup. So yes, we are in work in progress, like you can say, in that manner, and I'm sure that more participants will be having the similar questions, but not bringing it out. But I think work in progress would be the good answer to say.
Great, sir. So thank you for that insight, sir. With this now, I would like to close the panel discussion. Wish we had more time for some more deliberation, some more questions from the audience maybe, but for the want of time, we would close the session now. I'll just list down a few key takeaways. So while the discussion was on, I was taking some notes. So in terms of the association, as Mr. Henry enlightened, associations again, act in the best interest of the players, of the bodies, of the sport at large. We need to have good administrators who are planning for and actually promoting the sport so that it reaches the zenith. And of course, some amount of political involvement is always healthy. People at large, the common people at large, think it is not. But yes, coming from somebody who is present and who is practicing this, that some amount of this thing, so that the game reaches and is able to have that kind of push and influence with the government, with the administration, the government administration, if required. Any sport can have a continuous growth only if it is nurtured and developed at the grassroots level. And from both the panelists, we have got this, that grassroots levels is where we need to do, whether it is baby leagues, whether it is just advocacy also, as we are doing with a lot of schools, whether it is changing the mindset of the academicians also, where sports is not given, or even physical fitness for that matter is not given stepmotherly treatment, whether it is even enlightening the coaches, whether it is even enlightening the academicians, as Mr. Nair said, that sports can be taken as a mean to achieve a lot of things. If I don't do my homework and I'm a good sportsman, I will listen to my coach. And when my coach says you better do your homework and then get on the field, I will do it. Maybe I won't listen to my teacher, but I definitely will to my coach. So these are smaller things that we need to do. But I think this will go a long way in promoting that sport and sporting mindset. Very importantly, the unsung heroes of the game are the coaches. They are often overlooked. A lot of credit is never given unless you have your individual players, your Saina Nehwals. Who knows a Milkha Singh ka coach? Till the time the movie didn't come in. So coaches are unsung heroes, and I think they are the ones who are responsible for identifying the talent and nurturing it even at the grassroots level, and then taking them, handing over to another coach at a different level, who in turns get down to that player or athlete at a different level. Now again, when we talk of this, I think Nair sir, again Henry sir, both are doing a fantastic job in terms of development of the coaches, with the licensing, with the association, giving them a voice beyond the technical aspects of the game. So this is what we think. Last but not the least, money. This comes in as one of my favorite or personal points, because a lot of time we see whenever a player or anybody who's associated with the sport talks of money, the player is not interested in the sport but is interested in the money. Cricket wale baat karte hain, chal jata hai, cricket money chal jata hai, but any other sport, when they talk of money, it is not taken in a good view. But then yes, we need to understand that players have families to run. I can't have a player doing a peak performance when he has pressing financial issues to be taken care of. वो performance आएगा ही नहीं. We had the last panel, we had the association officials telling us players traveled on unreserved tickets in train for their bouts next day morning. You can't expect a player to perform when he's sitting in an unreserved train compartment the whole night. So yes, not just for the players, in fact, for the entire ecosystem, as Dinesh sir said, turfs are to be paid. The infrastructure has to be developed. Not just that, nutrition, physiotherapy. So all these allied aspects of sports technology now, for example, if you're playing at the highest levels, all these allied aspects come into play. And I think once the grassroots levels is taken care of, the parents' mindset also in this is taken care of. When we speak to a lot of players who are kids who are playing sport in the school teams, when we speak to their parents, nutrition is again one subject that they say, "अरे मैं तो बच्चे को अच्छा खाना खिलाता हूँ, 6 रोटी खिलाता हूँ उसको." So we have to get into proper nutrition to avoid injuries also. So these are some aspects, I think, where our academicians can work in, and very, very, very pertinent questions that we discussed today, and very, very, very enlightening answers that we got. On this note, I would like to end the session by thanking the panelists. Thank you, Henry sir. Thank you, Dinesh sir, for being there and sharing your thoughts, and the entire team at 360 for ensuring that this kind of sessions happen. I would also like to take this opportunity to announce that we are having our next session on the 12th of June at 11 a.m. We'll share further details on social media as well as through emails and everything. So once again, thank you, the panelists, thank you, the audience, for being here and taking time out. Thank you so much. With this, we will end the panel discussion and the session. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.